here's the misconception. Here's the myths that are out there, the lies of the Miami Dolphins and Chris Grier, right? I always hear from fans, oh, well, the last two drafts, they've had 8 picks, and 4 of them are in the 6th and 7th rounds. And the last couple of drafts, they traded for Chubb. They traded for Tyreek. They made a couple of trades that they added some really quality players. Chubb was having one hell of a year until Mike McDaniel had a brain fart and didn't pull his players out when he should have, with, only a few minutes left in a useless game that was over already at that point. Chubb, up until that point, was having a monster season. That's exactly what you traded for. So, to me, you've made moves that the picks you traded helped you out in those players, right? But unfortunately, and then the owner also cost you a first and a third. So you've lost out in the last 2 years. Because while I explain all of this to you, and some of you are confused, some of you are frustrated, some of you are all right with this process. In the end, the first 2 that I talked about, you're going to feel much better. The ones that feel all right about this process are going to feel even better after I explain everything. So the first 2 years, you hit on so many. Now you've got the decisions you have to make. Keep some, lose some. The last 2 years, you haven't had a lot of picks. And let's go over them. Cam Smith, I haven't given up on the guy. It took Austin Jackson a couple years to figure it out, dude. You know what I mean? Draft picks sometimes take a little bit to kind of figure it out. So Cam Smith, we'll see what happens this year with Weaver. Chan is a hit already. Tyndall's been a complete bust, right? We'll see if they get anything out of him here, but he looks like a bust. And then Azukama is the other one that's a 4th rounder. So 1 second, 2/3, and a 4th. That's all you've had 2 years. The other 4 are getting Higgy with it in the 6th, Ryan Hayes in the 7th, Good in the 7th, and Skyler in the 7th. And you got something out of Skyler, and you were making Good into at least a backup linebacker. So you were getting something out of 2 of the back end 4 picks. So guess what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen? After 2025, the next 2 years, you won't have the dilemma that you had the last 2 years, and you'll be able to use most of your draft picks and your free agent money. So what they did this year is they cut what they needed. They cut the fat that they needed, which they cut a lot of people you really didn't need anymore. You needed to move on from X. You need to move on from people that you cut on this team. That's fine. And you lost a couple of your draft picks, which you'll get compensatory picks next year for them. Okay? I don't know if it's going to be 3/3 or 2/3 and a 4th, or I don't know the formula. I'm not smart enough to figure it out. So I cannot tell you what it is, okay? If I don't know something, I'll freaking tell you I don't know something, okay? I'm not going to act here like I know everything. You know what I mean? But when I do know something, I'll take you to the woodshed on it. That's for sure, until you prove me wrong. But anyway, so this is how the cycle's going to go. So don't panic. Everything's pretty much on target. The real issues are injuries the last 2 years, the bad luck of the injuries, and Mike McDaniel having to grow the hell up and having to be a better head coach on a daily basis. The way they're approaching everything is incredibly intelligent. As somebody sent a tweet out yesterday that they ended up signing Shaq and Jordan and Aaron and who else was it? Like all those guys they signed for the amount of money they would have signed Wilkins. Like, you signed your free agent class pretty much for the amount you signed Wilkins. And I think you got really good players that will get you by for a year. And then you'll have draft picks and you'll have more cap space and all those kind of things that will help you out, down the line. But you won't have those crippling decisions after 25. 26 and 27 won't be as bad because of what you did for 2 years in trading some of your picks for important players. And then, unfortunately, the owner costing you a first and a third. But if you look at the last 2 drafts, dude, it's 3 7th rounders and a 6th rounder out of your 8 picks, and 2/3 and a 4th in your first 4 picks. Only 1 second rounder, and I think he'll be fine, man. I really do. I think Cam Smith will work out. If Cam Smith and a Chan work out and Tindo and Azukama don't, you're a success. Because you hit on a second and a third, you missed on a third and a fourth. 50% is great. Now, if Azukama somehow figures it out, along with Cam Smith and a Chan, it's been great drafting the last 2 years. Do you understand that? Like great drafting. Misconceptions, lies out there. Okay? It's because you don't look at the overall picture and see what they're seeing. And they're looking at the highway all the way down. And so they need to plan ahead. And if you put everything together, it's actually an intelligent plan in what they're doing. But if you want to have an agenda and just complain and make it about Tua, or say that the last 2 years, because I've heard this a lot, the last 2 years the drafts have sucked. They don't have any picks the last 2 years, you idiots. They've traded them away for very important players. And unfortunately, we got penalized because of dumbass owner. Can't do anything about that. That's not Chris Grier's fault. So to me, when I start looking at this overall, it comes like, okay, this is a rough year because you ended up losing some guys you don't want to lose. But really, in the end, when you think about it, are you going to pay that kind of money to some of those guys? Or do you want to pay the next wave coming in next year, which is just an incredibly important wave of players that are really the game changers, actually, because, you actually game plan for some of these people. You don't game plan for Wilkins, So I'm just saying that if you really look at it objectively and the way the things are paced, this is the proper approach, an intelligent approach to what they're doing overall. But you've got to, if you just want to pick and choose and then twist the story, you can't. The puzzle is all together. That's how you have to look at it. And to me, this makes all the sense in the world in what you're doing. And I see a light at the end of the tunnel in a sense, because next year you will have the money to keep the guys that are going to become free agents. And you're going to also have more draft picks, which then will buy you 4 to 5 years of cheap players. You understand? So that you have no penalties anymore because you lost a third this year. You lost a first last year. All that because Stephen Ross was an idiot. So all these kind of things get out of the way. And all of a sudden, you have more cap space next year. You get to sign your free agents. You don't have that purge, right? And now you have a whole bunch of draft picks. And then the following 2 years, you're really not going to be choked out having to sign a whole bunch of free agents. And you get to pile on more draft picks. Because you look at it early on, they had a bunch of draft picks and they were able to hit on a bunch of players. And unfortunately, this is the end result of it. You got to keep some, you got to lose some, you got to make some tough decisions, you got to make some smart decisions. I think these tough decisions were smart decisions. So I like everything that's going on.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.